I'm Hannah Smith, and I'm the newest Associate Director here at the Center at BYU Law School, and I'm very excited to be here with you today. We have a wonderful panel representing West Africa. Two of our panelists are here, and we hope the third one gets here soon. There she is? Oh, good. Wonderful. Thank you. So glad you could be here. So I'm going to go ahead and just read a short bio for each one, and then we will turn the time over to them for some opening remarks. Hopefully we will have some time at the end for some question and answer. So if you do have some questions, be thinking of them and save them for the end. Our first speaker is Lilian Salami, and she is the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Benin in Nigeria. She holds a BS in Home Economics and an MS in Nutrition, which she earned in North Dakota, a PhD in Human Nutrition earned in Nigeria, and a postgraduate diploma in Education earned in Nigeria, as well as a postdoctorate degree earned in South Africa. She is currently the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Benin and was the first female professor and first female dean of the Faculty of Education at the University of Benin. She is the immediate past Director General and Chief Executive of the National Institute for Educational Planning and Administration in Ondo, Nigeria. So welcome very much. All right, we'll go to the next bio. Sena Siaw-Boateng, I hope I said that correctly. She's the head of mission for the Embassy of the Republic of Ghana. She is the ambassador of Ghana to the Kingdom of Belgium and the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. She is also the head of mission to the European Union. As a career diplomat, she was the chef de cabinet of the Office of the Minister for Foreign Affairs and the Regional Integration, and also served in the Africa and Regional Integration Bureau, the Economic Community of West African States, National Office, and the African Union. She has been assigned to postings in Havana, London, Madrid, and Pretoria. She's negotiated various international agreements and investment guarantee treaties on behalf of the government of Ghana. As ambassador, she has chaired the working group of ambassadors of Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. She has led discussions at the EU on the sustainability of the cocoa industry, deforestation, vaccine development, and manufacturing in Ghana. She attended the University of Ghana and the Ghana School of Law, and she is a Chevening Scholar in International Relations at Oxford University and became a trained solicitor in legal practice in the UK. She's also a qualified barrister and solicitor at the Supreme Court of Ghana. Our third speaker is Serifat Oloruntoyin Solebo, and she's a judge of the High Court of Lagos State in Nigeria. She was called to the Nigerian bar in 1996. She has adjudicatory experience in civil and criminal cases, family and child protection matters, and breaches of fundamental human rights. She's a child advocate and a certified mediator. She's also a fellow of the Commonwealth Judicial Education Institute and a member of the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges Association, with training on child protection and rights, economic crimes, freedom of expression, judicial administration, alternative dispute resolution, and restorative justice. She has written about legal issues and is also the author of a children's book that deals with sexual and domestic abuse of children. So we welcome these very esteemed guests and very wonderful leaders, and we're excited to hear your comments, and we will save some time at the end for some question and answers. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's always so exciting to sit by very prominent women. A few years, I was just chatting with my sister there. I said a few years before now, you could only hear the women at the other side, the other room, and not visibly. But now the women are actually in the forefront, and I give kudos to especially women in Africa. So thank you so very much. I want to most sincerely thank the organizers for having me here. This is the first time I am really visiting Utah, and this symposium has just been so wonderful. And I hope it wouldn't be the last, even though I schooled here in the United States of America, but this is the first time I'm coming this far. My discussion is going to be pretty much on the academia, the role of academia in actually disseminating information on the human rights declaration. And it is very obvious why that is so, because for the 40 years of my life, I have been in the university system where I have taught. I have also been an administrator in other institutes before I became the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Benin with a student population of 60,000 students. I am the chair of all vice-chancellors in in Nigeria, and it's about 252 vice-chancellors. I'm also the vice president of the Association of African Universities. So I think I am eminently qualified to speak on academia and the role that we play in actually disseminating information to students. Now, if you take the case of Nigeria, where we are about 220 million citizens, 60% of that are actually youths in the ages of 20 to 25. And 13% of those ones are actually enrolled in one or other higher institutions, not just universities, maybe colleges of education or polytechnics. So now in looking at some of the characteristics of this group, they are very restive. And for over the 40 years, I can attest to that they are very restive, and of course, it is difficult to really pin them down. Now, for us to get the students into the university, we must, of course, educate them in terms of what are their rights, as well as the rights of others to live with them, so you don't impede your own rights, while, suppressing the rights of others. So once you come into the university, the first thing we do is to give you orientation. And because universities are driven by extant rules and regulations, of course, which encompasses also the Human Rights, Declaration, the students are then oriented, and then the students are also given handbooks at their spare times to go and read these handbooks. We also have the university, in our universities, even when it is mono universities, you have institutes or schools or faculties of law. Now, these faculties of law, not only do they train the students, they are also the watchdog for the university. So within that faculty, most times, we have directorates, and these directorates are actually to help streamline those, freedoms, freedom of thoughts, freedom of conscience, whether it is religiously inclined, or, freedom of religion. Now, it is very difficult, like I said, to communicate and to train children or these youths because of their restive characteristics. So we have checks and balances put in place so that when the students, for instance, a student may think that because of the freedom of thought, that he or she can then query the authority of a lecturer who has taught for over so many years. Now, what do we do with such students? Of course, we have committees that actually this student will appear before, and then, of course, tell their own story so that we are not now only believing one side of the story where the lecturer is probably saying one and then the student is. So we weigh the two sides, and after that, give judgment. Sometimes the students are just slapped on their wrist not to do that again. Other times, they may be actually rusticated from the university. Now, in terms of the freedom of conscience, some of them, of course, we expect them that we're going to give them degrees that not only state clearly knowledge, but also character. And so in doing that, we expect that whatever it is, they must live up to the ethics, the values of the university. And so when, again, we find them wanting in these areas, they are again sent to some of these committees that are set up to actually hear their cases. Now, in case of religious, what we have done in my university and in most of all other universities is that we have tried to give space to everyone. So we have the mosque, we have the Catholic Church, we have the Orthodox other Orthodox churches. And then when we have even minority groups who actually approach management that they would want a space, we actually do give them space. The reason for this is that we want everyone to enjoy their peculiarity in terms of their worship. However, like I said, because institutions are microsystem of the larger society, we are bound to have challenges. And most challenges that we have had in Nigeria, for those of you who have followed our history in the last few years, is the case of religious problems. And these, of course, these problems are perpetrated by terrorist groups, the Boko Haram, for those of you who know Boko Haram, the bandits group, and all other groups who actually adopt individuals, ask for ransom, and also force them to believe in their own religion. And in most cases, it is Islamic religion. In the past 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they actually dared and entered a university and adopted about 40 students. Some of those students are forced to now become Muslims upon the release, and for others, they are made to become slave wives, where they are used for sexual, gratification to these students. So what have we been doing as institution? Now, the government is trying its best in trying to find that these perpetrators are brought to book and are dealt with, seriously, they are sanctioned. And then for us, we have beefed up our security, ensuring that these individuals, these hoodlums, these terrorists, don't find easy access to the universities where our students, our children become, easy prey to them. So we are doing that. We are also educating our students. Anytime you see something that doesn't look right, because these persons obviously don't look like students, you must, of course, draw attention of authority so that we can easily nip such, issues from, the onset. So these are some of the areas that we're looking. Again, like I said, these students are very restive, they're easily swayed, but we have all of these checks and balances put in place so that we can really train our students, not only to acquire knowledge, expertise, but also to be of good character so that we can have a better Nigeria and a better world for all of us. Thank you very much.
Good morning, all. I would like to first and foremost thank the organizers from Brigham Young University for inviting me to attend this year's symposium. My first time in Utah, just like my sister, and one thing I'm sure of, I'm coming back here. It's an honor for me and my younger sister, Barbara, she's sitting here, to be here in Utah. And I have a friend, Katia, who did her missionary work in Brussels with her dad, also here. I'm just surrounded by a lot of family and friends, my compatriots from Ghana, James and Emmanuel, yes. Benjamin and the wife, yes. Thank you so much for being here. Madam Moderator, allow me to pay tribute to the International Center for Law and Religion Studies and to all the students who are volunteering to ensure that our stay here is comfortable. They've done a good job. And do let them know that we, the West Africa panel, are very happy with how they have conducted our movement here in Utah. Thank you. Now, during his opening statement to us on Sunday evening, Brett Shafts, which I know you all know him, he remarked how the law operates in the past but still connects to the future. I will say, and I can feel here, that in this university, a profound attachment to the past is with us, and it's guiding us for the future as well. Religion and law have shaped this country, the United States, and this state, Utah, in so many ways, and we are all here to learn more about this. Indeed, the history of America is the history of religious liberty, of pluralism, and the belief that freedoms are stronger when they are not compelled, but voluntarily embraced. These are beliefs that Brigham Young embodied and which Joshua Reuben Clark, after whom this law school is named, so vigorously defended. The organizers of this symposium, therefore, in their wisdom, have given us speakers a great latitude to choose from to make our remarks. So I will begin to think of what I want to say. As I begin to think of what I want to say, my mind turns towards Christmas and also the role of religious bodies in the fight against terrorism and violent extremism. My sister here has mentioned something about that. You know, less than 3 months from now, many of us will be celebrating the holy season. And I'm very much connected with that because when I see how the church lights up the temple, it gives me joy. Now, finding a free seat in a church in Ghana on Christmas Day is a hard job. Where whatever your denomination is, it doesn't matter your religious belief, you are just in church because it's Christmas. Our celebrations at Christmas reflect the profound presence of religion in our society. The Constitution protects our right to believe and to worship as we please, and of course, it protects our right not to believe or worship at all if we choose not to. So, as many of us congregate to celebrate Christmas with our families, we must be mindful that not everyone is as fortunate as Ghanaians in enjoying and exercising this constitutional right. Around the world, people of faith suffer persecution from their convictions, while in some societies, deep divisions exist between religious communities. We've heard about the Boko Haram and all others in neighboring Nigeria. So, the protection of the law may exist on paper, but reality can be starkly different. So this coming Christmas, some people will be celebrating it in furtiveness. For many Christians elsewhere in the world, they may be afraid to even show up to celebrate. And this is what I'm talking about in my region, West Africa. In Ghana, the constitutional guarantee of religious freedom is simply a reflection of our society's stability and strength over generations. Our president, Akufo-Addo, in his Independence Day speech to us this March, stated that the greatest achievement of our independence is the fact that we have welded different ethnic entities into one nation. And I will say that we have also welded different religious beliefs into one nation. We live and let live, and we revel in our diversity in Ghana. Just as Ghanaian Christians celebrate Christmas, so too Ghanaian Muslims observe Ramadan. And frequently, in our multi-faith and tolerant society, we mark each other's religious festivals. On the day of Ramadan, I do not go to work. I'm a Christian, and I enjoy Ramadan. I celebrate with the Muslims, just how they also come into our space and celebrate Christmas. This is what we do in Ghana. So it's the same way with other traditional religious beliefs as well. When there's a traditional ceremony where those beliefs are practiced, we Muslims and Christians also go into that space and we celebrate with them. So this is what I'm talking about, that we've weaved all our religious beliefs and we have a one tight-knit nation. Indeed, for generations, our families in Ghana have often grown to include different faiths, and this serves as precious social glue. Religion permeates so many aspects of our public life, whether it's the preamble to our Constitution, which ecumenically invokes Almighty God, prayers to open a parliamentary session, or the oath of our judges and ministers when they take upon assuming office. But fundamentally, from a legal perspective, religion in Ghana is and must remain a private matter. As I said earlier, faithfulness flourishes when it is not compelled. So undoubtedly, our common law system is deeply infused by Christian principles and traditions, but it is a secular system that guarantees rights and expresses responsibilities of all Ghanaians regardless of religion. Theocracy, by whatever name, is not Ghana style, and it would be a slippery slope towards division and instability. It is no accident that until now, our country has avoided the bloodshed, extremism, and the tension that characterizes some of the other countries in the West Africa sub-region in which intolerance has taken root. We have also resisted the temptation to create internally different legal systems according to religious practice. This helps to ensure a society in which any Ghanaian can aspire to greatness, mindful that the law protects them. So again, going to church on Christmas Day, it may appear to be the most natural thing in the world for many of us, but as we do so, we might stop to reflect on the value of our legal system that enshrines and protects this right. I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, that laws can change and rights can be suppressed. It's unlikely this will happen in Ghana, but the wider lesson to draw worldwide is that rights, including the right to reject religion, can take centuries to secure, but just seconds to destroy. And so, we have a duty as citizens in a democracy to nurture what the United States Declaration of Independence refers to as inalienable rights, not granted by legislators, but by higher authority, and which can, therefore, never be removed or given away. Let me come back to this symposium. This symposium is marking the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is widely considered today to be the foundation of customary international law. Indeed, Article 18 establishes the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, the right to change one's religion or belief, and the right to manifest religion freely. Since its adoption, the Declaration has become a beacon of hope and light to so many around the world. And our world has evolved. The question of universal rights has also evolved to include the concept of universal human dignity. I'm proud again to mention that Reuben Clark Law School has been at the forefront of this laudable development. 5 years ago, the International Center for Law and Religion Studies here in Brigham Young University was instrumental in crafting the Punta del Este Declaration. the question that informed this declaration was, how do we form, guide, and sustain consensus on core human rights, the values, despite tensions in a diverse and divided world? So then, that brings me back to what I was saying, that the threats of terrorism to statehood and the role of religious leaders now it's something that we must all think of. Our humanitarian work must be enforced. It must be re-emphasized, because the root causes of terrorism, which my sister mentioned, which typically serves as a basis for radicalism and terrorism, can simply not be eradicated through the barrel of the gun. It is very evident now. We see the heavy artillery and equipment, the soldiers and the boots on the ground in West Africa. It is evident now that it is not solving the crisis. Addressing the root causes to terrorism, such as marginalization, poverty, inequality, unemployment, among others, can only be achieved through non-kinetic means. That means soft options. We don't need the heavy artillery. Yes, they play their part, but we need to play our part as humanitarian workers as well. This means we have to bring on board stakeholders who are outside the realms of the traditional state security actors. Stakeholders such as civil society organizations, and importantly for this symposium, religious and traditional authorities. So, as faith practitioners, as we sit here, we owe it to humanity to also design customized counter-terrorism frameworks. A paradigm shift is needed in striking a good balance, leveraging the power of the pulpit. When we stand at the pulpit, we have a power, and we must use it. At the pulpit, we need to sensitize, we need to orientate, we need to appeal to all. And that is what Alistair said this morning. Bishop Alistair said, public spirit, to get involved in this fight. Otherwise, it may engulf us all in a way that would make it increasingly difficult for humanity to deal with. Let's situate this fight of terrorism outside the realms of military and government and look at it through the lenses of human dignity, because armed conflict is the point at which universal human rights and universal human dignity are the biggest losers. So, my dear audience, how then can religious leaders contribute to embedding the values of both the Universal Declaration and the Punta del Este Declaration? How best can we do it? I mentioned earlier the role of religion in Ghanaian society, but increasingly, we are advancing values of human dignity. We are a multi-faith, multi-ethnic community in which freedoms are constitutionally guaranteed. Let me say this. Our president is a Christian. He's Anglican. Our vice president is a Muslim. He's always in church with Mr. President, and when Mr. President has the opportunity, he visits with the imam. The Chief Justice is a woman. So human dignity means something to each and every Ghanaian, especially in the context of our history. And this is what we think, that if we promote this in the sub-region, it will help. Nigeria is doing its best as well. As my sister mentioned, at her campus, there is the See Something, Say Something. At the Ministry of National Security in Ghana, we have also started a campaign called See Something, Say Something. For those who know the United Kingdom, it is said, see it, say it, sorted. So these are the things that we must get our students in school or the congregation in our churches to be practicing. I am going to start. James is here, Richard is here. Where's Richard? Yes. So we're going to start, continue this also with them, with the church in Ghana, and continue the good work of see it, say it, sorted. So let me conclude. Yes, I know my time is up. The lesson from 75 years of Universal Declaration of Human Rights is that making those rights a reality worldwide is work in progress. This applies especially in the field of religious freedom. The concept of human dignity pioneered by this center and this law school can undoubtedly help to bridge the gap. But we should not kid ourselves that the broader issue of human dignity is an easy topic to agree on because we can't define it universally. Indeed, another lesson from the UDHR is that we can't define human rights globally. I said in Oxford earlier this summer when we had our conference there that we leave this definition. Those who are masters of consensus are diplomats, so we leave it to them. They are best placed to assist this laudable aim of shaping a UN Human Dignity Day resolution. In the meantime, states and societies continue to influence each other, and we trust that our common humanity shines through amid the challenges. We are all born unique and special in the eyes of God, which is why religions have an essential role in nurturing that uniqueness through human rights and human dignity. I thank you for your attention.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As earlier indicated, I am a judge in Lagos, Nigeria. I have been privileged as a magistrate to have presided in the juvenile court and family court, both at the magisterial level and the High Court. So I have a bit of experience about abuses, violations of the rights of children, and of course at the family court level of the violations and the degradation of the rights of women in particular. So I'm going to speak generally about the rights of women. As we all know, Nigeria is a nation divided into three, the River Benue and the River Niger. So we have the north, the southeast, and the southwest. So it makes a clear division of our nation. To the east, we have more of Catholics and other Christian denomination, little traditionalists. In the west, we are not sure about the population, but I think the traditionalists are about 10%, and the Christians and Muslims share the remaining. Of course, we have atheists as well, those who don't believe in any religion. Of course, in the upper north, we have majorly the Muslims, and the Christians are in the minority. I'll quickly share an experience in a state we call Kwara State. It's kind of central, but it's closer to the north than us in the west. The little traditionalists there, just last month, wanted to practice their religion in the capital of Kwara State. Of course, there was uprising. The Muslims rose against them and ensured they did not at least do whatever they wanted to do, on the grounds that Ilorin is a Muslim state. How far that is true, I don't know, because the history of Nigeria, and Kwara State in particular, contradicts that. It was a Yoruba state before the warrior at that time sought the assistance of another Muslim to assist him in conquering the Alaafin of Oyo, who actually sent him to that town as a general. So I just quickly mentioned that to lay the foundation for some of the crises we are. And like I said, the North is predominantly Muslim. My sisters, they have mentioned the issue of Boko Haram. The interpretation of Boko Haram that I have heard is not Arabic. It's just that book or education is not lawful. But I want to say as a Muslim and as a lawyer that that is incorrect. The first revelation in the Quran is, read in the name of your Lord who has created you. And in the hadith, that is the saying of the Prophet, says clearly, you can look for education up to China. At that time, there was no plane, nothing. I'm not sure if the Prophet even knew where China was, but that's just to show that from Saudi Arabia to China is such a long distance, and that is you can pursue education up to that point. So where the northern Muslims or the Boko Haram sect got that idea from, I wouldn't know. It contradicts English. As a matter of fact, from history, at the time the Prophet lived in either Mecca or Medina, particularly in Medina, they had Christians, they had Jews, they have Serbians. Up to now, when you get to Riyadh or in Dubai, there are Christians there. They are not being persecuted. So I wonder where the Nigerian Muslims got it. But the little I have heard is that their scholars, most of them are radicals. They are the ones who issued unnecessary fatwas to get the followers to do what they do. Of course, rights are protected in Nigeria. We are signatories to so many international conventions. And a lot of the rights are actually enshrined in Chapter 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Those ones that are not there, like right to education, based on the United Nations Convention, the right to education of children is actually listed in the Child Rights Act, which other states except one had adopted, they have domesticated it. So up to a certain level, I think level 10 or 12, I can't remember, the rights of children to education is actually enforced, particularly in Lagos State, where I come from. But the problem is that in the Constitution, the right to education, it does not fall under the Chapter 4, which is where we have the fundamental human rights encapsulated. So sometimes some of the states hide under that without enforcing the rights of the children to education. But it's part of the social contract between the citizens and the Nigerian government. Of course, whatever is in Chapter 2 is not justiciable. You can't really go to court over that. That is, you can force government to make sure that is done. But the children's right to education, if you rely on the children's right law, you can do that. But restricting it now to the theme of this conference, rights to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. I gave that background so that you can understand whatever I will say subsequently. It's right there in our Constitution. From the Southwest, like I said, the East don't have problem with enforcement of the right to practice your religion. But in Southwest, we do have little bits of skirmishes. And most times it's like, I'm a Muslim, for example. I am really a Muslim, but I want to give an illustration. You go to a Christian school. The school might say, change your name to a Christian name. Or leave your religion and be a Christian if you must school in an institution, especially where it is free tuition or whatever. So the choice is either you stay there or you leave. But such cases, I must say, to the best of my knowledge, I've never been to court. It's just that we read about it, we hear about it. The one that had actually been to court has to do with the use of hijab. What is hijab? Veil. That's what the Quran says, that the believers, the wives, the daughters of the Prophet should veil up. And the way we do it is sometimes different from how they do it in Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia. So it differs from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. For example, in Nigeria, we just get a cloth and then you throw it on yourself. Whereas in Saudi or the Middle East, they actually use abayas and the jelibabas to cover up. So it depends, the style differs. But because people are getting more enlightened about their right to practice the religion, the way it's prescribed, people now, as for example, as Muslims, are using hijab. There's the story of a law graduate who was to be called to the bar. She presented herself before the authorities, and they insisted, you must take off your hijab for you to be called to the bar. And she said no. Of course, the mother went to court. Aisha, that girl, lost a year. Of course, the High Court at that level ruled in her favor to say it is her right to practice her religion as prescribed, and hijab is part of it. So you cannot force her to take up because she's entitled to that right to practice the religion the way it is ordered. There was also in my state the case of a young girl who entered year 1 in a secondary school. And the school authorities said, no, you can't use hijab in this state. Of course, they went to court. The High Court, the level where I work, said, yes, you take off the hijab if you must go to that school. They went on appeal to the Court of Appeal. And the Court of Appeal actually referred to the reason why she must use hijab as a practicing Muslim. So then the state itself, Lagos State, appealed, went to Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, no, it is that girl's right to practice her religion as ordained. The only problem is that that judgment did not come until after 6 years. So the girl had passed out of another school before the judgment came. But luckily, both the one for the law school student and this Lagos State one that went to the Supreme Court, now it is known in Nigeria, but that a Muslim has the right to use, the female Muslim has the right to use the hijab. But on a lighter note, when the Supreme Court judgment came out, a lawyer, a very senior lawyer, wore one funny traditional dress and said, if you are saying anybody, the Muslims can wear hijab, then I will better be wearing my traditional babalawo, herbalist uniform. It's a mockery of the whole thing. So, but that's as simple as that down south. The north is where we have the problems. Under the Nigerian law, in Lagos State, we have the blasphemy law. The penalty is 2 years. Under the general jurisdiction, criminal jurisdiction in the north, the penalty varies from 2 years to 3 years. Unfortunately, in 2000, the system permitted the northern states to adopt Sharia law. So they did, and they went beyond the constitutional provisions. The constitutional provision is that you, as a Muslim, if you wish to adopt Sharia, it will only be applicable to your personal law, and that is civil law. It will not go beyond that. Unfortunately, when the northern states adopted this Sharia thing, they actually adopted the Sharia Penal Code, which states that if you incite anybody or say anything insulting publicly against the Prophet or Islam, or do more, you will be sentenced or stoned to death, something like that. Death is actually the penalty. But again, whether under the Sharia law or the Constitution, procedures are laid down. Of course, if you complain, the police will take you to court under the general criminal jurisdiction. But if you're applying the Sharia law, the procedure is also there. You go to the imam, you lay your complaint, they file the complaint, and of course, at the end of the day, you go through the court, and the court will determine. Even if it's still death penalty, at least you will have presented credible, irrefutable evidence before the court, the Sharia court. Unfortunately, what they practice in the north is that once they allege you have said something that could lead to violence, or the mob will gather. And I think one of the speakers yesterday says, where there's no rule of law, there'll be the rule of the mob. That's actually what they do. They don't lay any complaint anywhere. If I see somebody and I say, hey, just said something insulting against the prophet, they will believe me. And of course, they start stoning. There are a couple of cases there. Sometimes the press will blow it open, it will hype it and say it's against Christians. It's not. From the records in court, we have more Muslims who were stoned to death than Christians. Although there was the case of one Deborah Solomon in Sokoto Shagara University, I think last year. It was alleged that on the platform of our school, she said something insulting against the Prophet and Islam. Of course, the following day, she was stoned to death. Very painful. So it was gruesome, but of course, the deed had been done. Before that Deborah's case, there had been so many others, mostly against Muslims. Some of them are as young as 13 years old. Very painful. But that's the way they've been practiced. And the only question that had been agitating my mind as a judge was that, was the state, that is government, permissive? Nobody will be arrested after the lynching or the stoning. And of course, the killers will go away with whatever they have done. It's very sad. But there have been instances where they have gone to court and the court had decided. I'll quickly share one or two with you. The story of the 13-year-old boy, it says something on Facebook. It was online. So at the end of the day, somebody read it, told them in the town. And before they could arrest him, he went into hiding. Of course, they burnt the family house down to force him, the parents, to produce him from hiding. And luckily, what they did was to have spoken to a lawyer who quickly now turned the boy into the police. And it's like, this is the man, the young boy they want. And the police did the needful, arraigned him at the Sharia upper area court, which is where they practice Sharia law. So the court sentenced that young boy to 20 years, and they went on appeal. And the High Court, not the Court of Appeal in that instance, the High Court upturned that this is a minor. He's not supposed to have gone through the adult criminal process, talk less of even convicting him or sentencing him. And that boy was actually acquitted and discharged, and he was asked to go. There's also the story of another one who also had similar allegation and who actually ran by himself to the police station and went, and of course the court found him guilty, convicted him, and sentenced him to death. Of course, they went on appeal. That's a 22-year-old boy. The case is now at the Supreme Court. I hope there'll be a clear judgment on this one, and I'll just tell you what the issues raised. So the Court of Appeal was like, you can't sentence this boy to death. There are some irregularities in the procedure you have adopted. So we would not sustain this conviction or the judgment. They now send the case back to be retried. The defendant was still aggrieved. His family also appealed, and they went to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal insisted that's the correct position, that the position of the High Court for retrial would stand. They are now at the Supreme Court. And the issues raised that I said I hope they will address is that, one, what is the constitutionality of the Sharia law to the extent of that penal code, which contravenes the Constitution that says if you are a Muslim and you want to adopt Sharia law, it will be for your personal rather than criminal matters. That these are gone outside the sphere of that constitutional provision. They want the Supreme Court to pronounce that the extent of that penal code in the Sharia law adopted as inconsistent to the Constitution and should be declared void and null. Two is that this young man is a Christian. He's definitely under Islamic law. He's not bound by the Sharia law. He ought not to have been arraigned at the Sharia court. He ought to have gone to the regular. And of course, the penalty, like I said, is 2 or 3 years, depending on the penalty agreed upon in that state, which is different from the Sharia law. And that's why I said I hope this particular one, particularly for the Supreme Court to determine clearly whether the Sharia law, as adopted by the northern states to the extent of the criminal jurisdiction, is valid. I don't believe it is. So those are some of the problems. But one of the things, like I said, I'd always agitated my mind was, why is the state so permissive? Why would there not be an arrest of those who kill randomly and gruesomely, even contrary to law, our own law or even the Islamic law? So, but the other one is more of the police. Why are they not doing their job? Everybody in the north is like, they have killed you, you fold your hands. It's as if it's nothing different, and they go their own way. So, but with regards to children, we try to let parents know, don't force them to take up any religion. If you adopt a child in Lagos State, or generally I think in Nigeria, but Lagos State is the major state where adoption takes place lawfully and legally. So we ensure that you do not force the child adopted to adopt your religion. The child can willingly and freely adopt your religion or choose another one. And like I said, in Islam, practice is different from what the Quran preaches or the Hadith. There's no compulsion in religion. But I wonder when I see Muslims says you must. So it is not Islamic. It is un-Islamic for any Muslim or any Islamic organization to say, join us. Of course, the Boko Haram that was referred to my sister, if they are truly versed in the knowledge of the Quran or the Hadith, they will not say education is unlawful or is illegal. They will not keep women or girls or rape them. There are serious penalties under the Sharia law for anybody to do any of those things. So I believe they are ignorant. They don't have the understanding of Islam. And again, like one speaker said yesterday, most times as Muslims, we follow what our preachers say and not what the Quran says. Because we are ignorant, we don't read the Quran, and neither do we read the Hadith itself. So the practices does not augur well, does not augment what the religion itself practices. So basically, that is what I can say about freedom of thought and conscience and religion. Thank you.
We have a few minutes left for questions, and we have some microphones going around, so please raise your hand, and the microphone will come to you. Any questions? Yes.
Judge, could you comment on this Wallace case? Wallace case?
On which case?
He was accused of blasphemy and he's still president. I was just wondering if you had any.
Who's president?
Mubarak Bala.
Yes, that's the 22-year-old case I said has gone to the Supreme Court. Yes, that's the 22-year-old matter that I said has gone to the Supreme Court, and honestly, I await. Because the Supreme Court, in one of the cases, I must tell you, to my dismay, actually accepted Sharia law. The penalty they imposed in the North on blasphemy, I don't think that decision, with due respect, is right. Because the Constitution is clear. It is a supreme law. The law says you can only practice Sharia to the extent of your personal rights, nothing more beyond that. But what the blasphemy is a criminal allegation. So for the Supreme Court to have agreed to one of the decisions, I don't think that would be. And that's why in this particular Aminu Serifat case, they actually raised it. In the other cases, the validity and constitutionality of that penal code to that extent was not raised. And you know the court will not pronounce on what is not before it. Maybe that's why they did not pronounce. But that's why this particular one I am following up, and I'm quite interested, looking forward to a clear pronunciation on it. Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to express my gratitude for my three sisters as a fellow resident of West Africa. It's a joy to see year after year the preparation that you give to these matters, and this has been a great example of it. Thank you very much.
I have one actually on the education front. If you could just address the freedom of students to express themselves religiously on campus, and how is that playing out as you see it from your vantage point in colleges?
Well, like I said, we actually have the freedom for you to express, but again, with the caution that you do not impede that on some other person. For instance, the Muslim, we know that they have certain hours where they have to pray, and as an administration or the administration of that university, we have actually set that period free for serious examinations so that we allow their peculiarity. And so that has not created any problem. Again, like I have said, we have created different avenues where everyone, and in public functions, we actually have crisscross, denominational services, where sometimes the Muslim starts the prayer, and then it's ended, we end such with, the Catholic or the Christian. So we have good harmony, and I don't think that has really happened. But for, of course, these, terrorists that are now getting access into the universities, we don't have problems with.
So you aren't seeing the terrorist element coming into the campus?
Exactly, and that is our fear, that once this is not curbed, now that this is just now happening, it might now just, continue to evolve itself to the point where it becomes a national issue. But we are discussing that even at the Committee of Vice-Chancellors, that we must, take this bull by the horn and make sure that this doesn't happen to our students anymore.
Thank you.
Yes.